Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark. Your online activity isn't as private as you think. Hackers, websites, and content restrictions limit what you can do online. A VPN like Surfshark keeps you secure and lets you access content freely from anywhere. More on that later. Let's get into the video. The following video fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and is intended for educational and documentary purposes only. It provides a factual and responsible discussion about the public events surrounding rapper XXXTentacion's life and legacy. This content does not promote, condone, or glorify violence, abuse, or any harmful actions. Instead, it aims to inform and educate viewers through a journalistic approach. Sensitive material has been handled appropriately, with necessary censorship and disclaimers to ensure compliance with YouTube's policies. If there are any concerns regarding this content, I kindly request a manual review from a human to confirm that it adheres to all content standards. Now, XXXTentacion's name is making waves once again, sparking conversations about his past, his influence, and the controversies that surrounded him. But this isn't just about a viral clip, it's about understanding the full story. In this video, I'll break down why X is trending today, the key moments that shaped his legacy, and the impact he left behind. For those unfamiliar with XXXTentacion, Jose Anfroy, professionally known as XXXTentacion, or simply Triple X, was a rapper, singer, and songwriter from Florida. In 2015, XXXTentacion dropped a song called Look at Me, a raw, distorted track that would later become his breakout hit. The song's aggressive delivery, blown-out bass, and rebellious energy made it an instant underground favorite. Look at Me initially gained traction on SoundCloud, where X had already built a cult-like following, but by 2017, the song exploded into the mainstream, fueled by viral moments like a beef with rapper Drake, other controversy, and X's rising reputation as one of the most unpredictable figures in rap. XXXTentacion was a rapper known for his raw emotion, genre-blending sound, and deeply personal lyrics. His music ranged from aggressive, high-energy tracks to melancholic, introspective songs that resonated with millions. Beyond his music, X was also one of the most controversial figures in hip-hop, with a life filled with legal issues like abuse allegations, personal struggles, and redemption arcs. His impact extended far beyond music. While his music resonated deeply with millions, his personal life was often the subject of intense scrutiny. Despite the controversy, XXXTentacion remained one of the most influential and talked about artists of his generation. He managed to build a deep connection with his fanbase, speaking openly about mental health, pain, and personal growth. The year before his passing, however, XXXTentacion seemed to be going through a personal transformation. He started speaking more about positivity, self-growth, and redemption, distancing himself from some of the chaos that had previously defined his career. He documented this shift extensively through his Instagram lives and his vlogs, where he would talk directly to his fans about his struggles, his mistakes, and his hope for the future and the youth. These moments painted a picture of an artist who was not only evolving musically, but also trying to reshape his life and legacy.
Currently, I'm in a huge state of paranoia, just due to my past and just the things and the people I've associated myself with previously. So I'm trying my best to escape that realm of mind and that realm of thought in order to evolve into not only a teacher, but just someone to motivate the youth and to push the youth.
X promised his supporters that he was headed in a different direction, both musically and personally. He made it clear that he wanted to leave behind negativity and focus on growth, positivity, and giving back. True to his words, in January 2018, he launched the Helping Hand Challenge, a movement aimed at spreading kindness and making a real impact in the world. As a part of his initiative, X visited a foster home, personally donating a variety of items, including shoes, clothes, musical equipment, TVs, and PS4 consoles. His goal was to inspire others to do the same, encouraging fans to record themselves performing acts of kindness and sharing them online to create a ripple effect of positivity. This shift in his message marked a new chapter in his life, and despite his past, many fans saw this as a sign of genuine change. Others, however, saw it as X attempting to overshadow the negativity surrounding his past. While some believed his transformation was genuine, critics argued that his push for positivity was a calculated move to repair his public image rather than true reflection of change. This divide in perception followed him throughout his career. On one hand, X was seen as a troubled artist trying to better himself, while on the other side, he was viewed as someone whose past actions couldn't be undone with good deeds. Despite the skepticism, his fans remained fiercely loyal, believing that his growth was real and ongoing.
Okay guys, so I'm going to be starting a challenge. It's called the Helping Hand Challenge. And in this challenge, the way to participate in this challenge is basically whoever makes the most donations gets to meet me, spend a day with me, gets to go out to dinner with me.
Although he accomplished a lot in his short-lived career, he sadly didn't make it as far as he envisioned. At just 20 years old, XXXTentacion had already built a massive fanbase, reshaped the SoundCloud rap movement, and shown glimpses of personal growth. But his journey was cut short far too soon.
A rapper who went by the name XXXTentacion is dead following a shooting in Florida. The Broward County Sheriff's Office has confirmed the news. The hip-hop newcomer, whose real name was Jose Onfroy, was shot about 40 miles north of Miami at a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach.
Now, before we continue with the video, a quick word from our sponsor, Surfshark. Online security is more important than ever. Every time you browse, shop, or stream, your personal info is out there, whether it's financial details, medical records, or just your online activity. And let's be real, most people don't even think about how exposed they are online. And that's where Surfshark comes in. A VPN, virtual private network, keeps your internet private, secure, and unrestricted across all your devices. It blocks ads, stops trackers, and prevents phishing attempts before they even reach you. And aside from security, one of my absolute favorite things about Surfshark is unlocking content from different countries. You ever try to watch a show and then boom, this content isn't available in your region pops up? Yeah, that's annoying. With Surfshark, I don't have to deal with that. Whether I'm researching for a video or just chilling with a meal, I can watch whatever I want from anywhere. And oh, if you like to travel, you can find cheaper flights and better hotel deals just by switching your location. It's one of those things you don't really even realize is possible until you start using a VPN. Right now, Surfshark is hooking you up with 4 extra months free when you sign up for a 2-year plan. Just head over to surfshark.com/Blacky Spez, and also you got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's literally zero risk in trying it out. Again, it's surfshark.com/Blacky Spez. Link is at the top of the description and pinned in the comments. And now, let's continue on with the video. On June 18, 2018, XXXTentacion was shot and killed outside Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida. The 20-year-old rapper had just left a dealership when 2 armed men ambushed his car in an attempted robbery. X was shot multiple times and later pronounced dead at the hospital. Leading up to the attack, X was being stalked. The suspects had followed him to and from the bank where he had withdrawn a large sum of cash, reportedly $50,000, which he put in a Louis Vuitton bag. This made him an immediate target, on top of the fact that he was driving around in a recognizable car in his city, which a lot of people knew that he owned. And within days, law enforcement identified and arrested multiple suspects. However, the circumstances of his death only deepened the divide around his legacy, with some seeing him as a young artist taken too soon, others pointed to his troubled past. Seeing his passing, X's legacy has remained convoluted. On one hand, many fans focus on the positive aspects of his career, his music, his emotional depth, and his attempt at personal growth. His songs about mental health, depression, and pain continue to resonate with millions, and his influence can still be heard in today's generation of artists. However, the darker aspects of his career, his legal issues, violent past, and the controversies that surrounded him have never fully faded away. This divide has made his legacy one of the most debated in modern hip-hop. Recently, XXXTentacion's name has been trending heavily on social media after clips from a documentary about his life have resurfaced. These clips have been turned into memes, sparking a wave of viral attention. The most viral one is one where X gets asked if he has a relationship with his father, and he says the following.
Do you have any relationship with your father? I mean, we talked about your mom.
What's that? What's a father?
Now, there's nothing particularly deep about why these clips are catching so much attention, aside from 2 main factors. First, there's the overall perception of XXXTentacion as an artist and a public figure, which is the fact that he was corny and that he was fake deep. Second, there's the controversy surrounding his past, including the abuse allegations from his ex-girlfriend, Geneva, which remain a major point of discussion in conversations about his legacy. Let's first touch on the musical aspect. For a long time, XXXTentacion was labeled as a fake deep artist, someone who leaned into emotional and philosophical themes, but wasn't always taken seriously by critics or certain hip-hop fans.
This album is so edgy, and it's so obsessed with trying to convince the audience that it's dark, when it's really just shallow and annoying. If X has convinced you that he's deep with the music he's presented on this album, he could probably convince you of anything.
His music often revolved around pain, depression, and personal struggles, which deeply connected with his audience. But at the same time, some dismissed his lyrics as pseudo-intellectual or overly dramatic, arguing that he was just capitalizing on teenage angst rather than offering real depth. His debut album 17, released on August 25th, 2017, was a project that marked a major shift in his artistry. Unlike his earlier work, 17 was deeply introspective, emotional, and vulnerable, showcasing a different side of XXXTentacion. On the album's intro, titled The Explanation, X included a voice message where he directly spoke to his listeners about what this project meant to him.
By listening to this album, you are literally, and I cannot stress this enough, literally entering my mind. And if you are not willing to accept my emotion and hear my words fully, do not listen.
A lot of people, however, had a completely different view of his music, and once again, it all circled back to the fake deep criticism. Many felt like while X's music tackled serious and emotional themes, it often did so in a surface level or exaggerated way. A lot of people saw his music as performative rather than profound, arguing that he capitalized on pain and depression without truly offering deeper insights. This perception became a major shift of the debate surrounding his artistry. X was obviously aware of this criticism, which is why he was constantly speaking directly to his audience in a way that felt personal. He wanted to bridge the gap between himself and his listeners, making it clear that he wasn't just making music. He was trying to connect, guide, and uplift those who related to his struggles. But even with his efforts to control his own narrative, X remained one of the most polarizing figures in hip-hop. To some, he was a deep, misunderstood artist who genuinely cared about his fans. To others, he was a controversial figure using emotional branding to mask a problematic past. So, how about we talk about that problematic past right now, shall we? If you guys are still with me, make sure you drop a like on this video. And if you're new here, my name is Blacky Spez. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with all this content. So on this next part, we're going to get into the full story between XXXTentacion and Geneva. So make sure you're comfortable and let's get into it, okay? In 2014, XXXTentacion met Geneva Ayala, a young woman who was 17 years old at the time and reportedly experiencing homelessness, living out of a motel. Their initial meeting sparked an immediate connection, with X showing deep concern and care for her early on. One notable moment that reflected this was when X offered to sleep in the motel lobby because Geneva was afraid of sleeping alone. At the time, she was struggling with self-harm, and X noticed cuts on her thigh with the word alone written next to them. This deeply resonated with him, as he often spoke about feelings of isolation in his own life. It was in this moment that they formed a bond, understanding each other's pain on a personal level. However, their connection was short-lived. Geneva pulled away after learning that X was already in a relationship at the time. As a result, they lost contact and didn't speak for 2 years. Now, it wasn't until 2016 when Geneva was 19 years old that she and X reconnected once again, this time under very different circumstances, leading to the turbulent relationship that later became widely discussed. In 2016, Geneva Ayala reconnected with XXXTentacion in an unexpected way. Her best friend had invited her to a show, and while she was outside the venue, she locked eyes with X. Without saying a word, X walked up to her, grabbed her by the neck, and then walked away. Now, instead of being put off by this gesture, Geneva later admitted that she found it attractive, saying that she thought it was sexy. Shortly after that, the two began officially dating, and their relationship moved quickly. When X moved to Orlando in late June 2016, Geneva decided to go with him. According to her, the relationship started off well. It was romantic, and X was publicly posting her on social media as his fame began to rise. Around this time, he was starting to gain recognition in Florida, and despite the chaos of his growing success, he kept Geneva by his side wherever he went. However, as time went on, those around X and Geneva began to notice an unsettling dynamic, one that gave off an intense sense of obsession rather than a healthy relationship. Now, when Geneva moved in with XXXTentacion, she was working at a hospital, and she was earning about $10 an hour. She at the time was balancing her job while adjusting to life with X, but that didn't last long. Shortly after moving in together, X told Geneva to quit her job. Since he was driving her to work, he eventually told her, "You don't need that job, I got you." And just like that, the young woman decided to quit her job. According to Geneva, when X cared about something, he was unstoppable. Once he made up his mind about something, nothing could change it, which is why she ended up complying when he told her to quit her job. Now, their relationship was far from perfect. Geneva later admitted that miscommunication and jealousy played a major role in their issues. Their connection, which started off romantic, quickly became intense and unpredictable, with emotions swinging between love and conflict. As X's fame grew, their relationship became even more complicated, marked by intensity, control, and emotional highs and lows. Geneva also stated that during that time when she initially reconnected with X, she lacked a sense of direction in her life. She felt lost, uncertain about her future, and searching for something to hold on to. According to Geneva, the love she had with Jose, XXX, was the only good thing in her life at the time. Geneva believed that she wouldn't be able to find that connection elsewhere, which made her cling onto the relationship despite its flaws. And this makes a lot of sense. I mean, she was young, she didn't have a direction, had no real stability in her life. Then came a young guy who, despite his flaws, was somebody. Someone with passion, ambition, and influence. When women are younger, they often, gravitate towards that sense of confidence and certainty, even if the person behind it is deeply flawed. And a lot of times, they can't really distinguish between genuine confidence and control disguised as strength, which was obviously the case in this situation. Looking back, she admitted that she was with X out of scarcity rather than genuine love. So she wasn't necessarily in love with him, but rather afraid of losing what felt like the only stable thing in her life. This dynamic added to the instability in their relationship, with Geneva feeling dependent on X and Jose being emotionally intense and unpredictable. Their connection became more about attachment and control than mutual love and support. Now at the time, X was also in an extremely dark place mentally. Even though he was catching a buzz in his city and building all this momentum with his music, the people closest to X, including Ski Master Slump God, confirmed that he was actually struggling. According to people around him, X was taking drugs, isolating himself, and engaging in deep spiritual conversations, sometimes with voices in his own head. He believed he was communicating with spirits, and at one point he even claimed that a spirit told him how long he was going to live. He was reportedly barely sleeping, according to his mother Cleo, constantly stuck in his own mind and wrestling with dark thoughts. This mental state only intensified his emotions, which inevitably bled into his relationship with Geneva. And around this time, jealousy began playing a bigger role in their relationship, especially when Geneva and X were around other people. Geneva later recalled multiple instances where X's possessiveness became more apparent, and others around them noticed the shift as well. One specific example came from an acquaintance of X, and this was the story. Geneva laughed at one of X's producer's jokes, Cade, who died in 2019, during a casual interaction. X immediately didn't appreciate it, taking it as a sign of disrespect. His reaction was cold and controlling. Instead of reacting in the moment, he simply turned to Geneva and said, "When we get to the house, go inside the room." And this was a clear sign of how their relationship was evolving into something very toxic. I mean, if a small interaction like this could, set him off in this way, ain't no telling what's about to come. His mental instability and jealousy all fed into the dynamic, making their relationship more intense, unpredictable, and eventually dangerous. What started off as a connection built on emotional attachment was now turning into something more controlling and possessive. The people around them immediately sensed that something was off, but no one had the guts to speak up at the time. However, what happened next marked a turning point in Geneva and X's relationship, and this was the moment when the physical abuse reportedly began. After he told her, "When we get to the house, go inside the room," according to those present, when Geneva and X eventually did that, it wasn't long before they started hearing commotion, loud noises, ruckus, and the sound of someone being hit. Then suddenly they heard water running. X had reportedly taken Geneva into the bathroom and was drowning her in water while she screamed for help. Aside from a friend banging on the door, no one inside the house truly intervened. They, however, later described hearing the horrifying sounds coming from the room. Later that night, Geneva's friend saw her and was shocked by what she witnessed. Geneva was battered and bruised, with visible marks behind her ears and on the back of her neck. Notably, there were no bruises on her face, which led some to believe that X had deliberately avoided hitting her in visible areas to avoid leaving noticeable marks. Simply put, Geneva had been physically assaulted, and the people around them knew that something was wrong, but no one stepped in to stop it. Around this time, another violent incident allegedly took place. One day, Geneva complimented a male friend on his jewelry, which set X off. In response, he slapped her and smashed her iPhone. Later, he ended up repairing the phone, but the situation didn't end there. Later that day, X allegedly returned to the room, holding two grilling tools, a barbecue pitchfork and a barbecue cleaner. He told her to choose one, saying he was going to use it to violate her in a certain place. Terrified, Geneva chose the fork. He made her undress and dragged the tool along her inner thigh. Before anything else happened, she passed out. Though he never went through with it, the incident was yet another example of the fear, control, and violence that defined their relationship. Now, while X's relationship with Geneva was becoming increasingly abusive, his personal life was also spiraling into more conflict. In the summer of 2016, XXXTentacion spent 6 weeks in jail after allegedly assaulting his former manager, Dylan Turner. According to reports, X was accused of attacking Turner during a dispute, leading to his arrest and charges being filed. However, the case never progressed.
We keep going in circles here.
The charges were eventually dropped after Turner chose not to pursue legal action against X. Years later in 2022, Dylan Turner passed away from an alleged overdose. Now, after the assault case was dropped, X found himself in some more trouble. This time, a case that would follow him for years. On July 14, 2016, XXXTentacion was arrested for a home invasion involving a firearm. But this wasn't just a random incident. This was an armed robbery that had been under investigation for months. It all started on November 16, 2015, when police responded to a home invasion in Sunrise, Florida. The victims, Che Isaiah Thomas and Rayanne Megan, told police that 4 people had forced their way into the house, including Jose Onfroy, XXXTentacion himself. According to reports, X was armed with a handgun and struck Thomas multiple times in the head, causing a serious injury on the left side of his head. While the attack was happening, the intruders were yelling demands like, "Where's the money? Where's the stuff?" The suspects then stole several items, including an Apple iPad, an iPhone, a Sony PSP, and $20 in cash before leaving the scene. At first, the police didn't know who was behind the attack, but that quickly changed. One of the victims, Isaiah Thomas, later identified X through social media, specifically through a Twitter account under the name Makeouthill XXX. Thomas saw a picture of X online and immediately recognized him as one of the attackers. After further investigation, police confirmed the Twitter account belonged to a Jose Onfroy, professionally known as XXXTentacion, and the case started to build against him. By December 7, 2015, investigators put together a photo lineup, and the victims were able to positively identify X as one of the men who committed the home invasion. The case wasn't going away, and by the following summer, police finally caught up with X, leading to his arrest in July 2016. Now at this point, X's legal troubles were piling up and his reputation in the streets was catching up to him. But despite all this, despite the violence, the arrests, and the chaos, his music career was starting to explode, and soon one song would change everything for X. Now during all this turmoil in X's life, his relationship with Geneva was descending into an even darker place. While X was in jail, Geneva, who had been staying with a group of Jose's friends, ended up cheating on him with one of his friends. This set off a chain reaction. At first, X told her he'd get over it, but deep down, he struggled to deal with it. His trust was shattered and things between them only became more unstable. Around the same time, Geneva suspected she was pregnant. She took a home pregnancy test, and when it apparently came back positive, she shared the news with X. But here's the kicker, Geneva was actually never pregnant. According to hospital records, she was never actually pregnant with a child, meaning the entire situation was based on a false assumption. In October 2016, after Geneva told X about the apparent pregnancy, things escalated. One night as they lay in bed, X suddenly got up and walked out onto the balcony. Geneva could hear him on the phone, and according to her, he was calling the person she had cheated with while he was in jail, demanding to know everything that happened. After the call ended, X walked back inside. That's when he allegedly turned to Geneva and said, "You need to tell me the truth right now or I'll kill you and this jit." For context, jit is Florida slang for kid, meaning he was referring to the unborn baby she had told him about. And this is when the violence reaches a breaking point. After the confrontation, X allegedly snapped. He elbowed, headbutted, and punched Geneva, escalating the violence to a level she hadn't experienced before. At one point, he strangled her until she nearly passed out, but it apparently didn't stop there. X then dragged her to the bathroom and, for the final time, demanded that she tell him everything, or he would kill her in the bathtub. By this point, Geneva was completely battered. When she looked in the mirror, she couldn't even recognize herself. She later described her face as looking distorted. Her left eye was completely swollen shut and leaking blood. There were a couple other people living in the apartment at the time. When they eventually arrived, Geneva begged them to let her go to the hospital. But X refused, and he allegedly told her, "You can't leave until your face heals, or the police will be called." He instructed her to wear a hoodie, I'm assuming to hide the injuries, and the group also put sunglasses on her as well. Then they all got into a car and drove her to an apartment in North Miami Beach, a place where Geneva had never been before. This entire sequence of events was later documented in the official police report. Once they arrived at the North Miami Beach apartment, Geneva was left there alone, and X confiscated her phone. She wouldn't get it back until October 8 when X was arrested. For the next 2 days, Geneva was trapped in the apartment, only leaving the room to use the bathroom. She later recalled that there were bars on the windows, which made an escape impossible. According to the police report, X gave her an ultimatum. "If you're smart, you would stay with me until you get a car and have enough money to move into an apartment. Because if you leave now, you're just setting yourself up for failure. You're going to be homeless." At this point, Geneva was completely isolated, physically battered, and afraid of what would happen if she left. Meanwhile, X's life was heading toward a major turning point, one that would change everything. After the abuse and isolation, Geneva finally had enough. At around 2 a.m. on October 8, XXXTentacion was in the living room, playing Minecraft and talking on Skype.
Everybody come get a map. So, wait. So nobody else pops up on your map except you, right?
While this was going on, Geneva saw an opportunity. She told him she was going to the kitchen to make him some food, but in reality, she was planning her escape. Using the refrigerator as cover, she crouched down, making sure X wouldn't be able to see her movements. Then she quietly opened a side door and ran, straight to the nearest main street she recognized. Geneva at this point had no money, no phone, and nowhere to go. She approached a stranger and asked if she could use their phone. The only number she knew by heart was her ex-boyfriend's, the same one she had been living with before moving in with X. She called and his mother answered. After hearing what happened, she immediately drove to pick Geneva up and took her to the Miami Beach Police Department. After escaping, Geneva's claims were backed up by multiple witnesses. Her ex-boyfriend supported much of her testimony, detailing what X had done to her. His mother also confirmed Geneva's injuries, describing her eyes as black and blue, purple, every color under the rainbow. Meanwhile, Sergeant Emil Soto, The Miami Beach police officer who first questioned Geneva was absolutely shocked by what he heard. A 23-year-old veteran on the force. He testified that Geneva told him X attacked her just for humming another artist's song, something he said he had never heard before in his entire career. This evidence strengthened the case against X, leading to the events that would soon change the course of his life and career forever. On October 8, 2016, just hours after Geneva's escape, XXXTentacion was arrested. He was charged with aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, domestic battery by strangulation, false imprisonment, witness tampering. These charges would follow him for the rest of his career, becoming one of the most controversial aspects of his legacy. Now, while X was locked up, his music started gaining a lot of traction, and what happened next would change everything for him. He was about to go from a local underground artist to one of the most talked about new rappers in hip-hop. While X was in jail, his 2015 track Look At Me started blowing up, eventually peaking at number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song's distorted production and aggressive flow made it a standout track in the underground scene, and it quickly went viral. In January of 2016, X also found himself in a high-profile feud with rapper Drake. Many fans noticed that Drake's song KMT from More Life had a similar flow to Look At Me, sparking accusations of biting.
I still think Drake, as a man, no, I'm keeping a blood raw. I still think Drake, he's not a man. I think he's that's a move, especially when I was in jail facing life. But
on March 26, 2017, after nearly 6 months in jail, XXXTentacion was released. While his arrest was initially tied to the charges involving Geneva, he was also facing an unresolved case from a 2015 armed home invasion and aggravated battery with a firearm. Upon his release, he pleaded no contest to those charges. Instead of a conviction, he received a withheld adjudication, meaning he wasn't formally found guilty, but was placed on 6 years of probation. With his legal troubles still looming, X was now free, but far from in the clear. His music was taken off, the industry was watching, and the controversy continued to follow him at every turn. Meanwhile, the case that had started it all was still ongoing, and the legal battles were still far from over. Initially, his trial for domestic violence and witness tampering was set for May 2017. However, it was pushed back multiple times and eventually rescheduled for October 5, 2017. Then, in a surprising turn, Geneva Ayala filed an affidavit requesting that all charges be dropped. She also declined to testify, making a dropped case or acquittal much more likely. In response, prosecutors refused to let the case go, deciding to split the charges into 2 separate cases, one for domestic violence and another for witness tampering. They even added more witness tampering charges and set a new trial date for December 15, 2017. Despite the legal chaos, sources close to Geneva confirmed her request was genuine. She simply wanted to move on. After X's death, she later admitted that she never wanted him to serve prison time. On September 8, 2017, Pitchfork leaked Geneva's testimony, reigniting public controversy over the case. This led to more trial delays, with the next court date set for December 11, 2017. As the backlash grew, X attempted to shift the narrative. He announced a $100,000 donation to domestic violence prevention programs, but the move was met with mixed reactions. Then he planned an event supporting rape victims, but it was ultimately canceled due to vandalism. But just as the case seemed to be at a standstill, things took a turn for the worse. Instead of moving forward, X's legal problems only escalated. XXXTentacion's count of felony charges had now reached double digits. Prosecutors added 8 additional charges, bringing his total to 15, all related to witness tampering. According to court documents obtained by TMZ, prosecutors believe that X had attempted to coerce Geneva into not testifying while he was behind bars. Law enforcement claimed that during his time in jail, X made multiple recorded phone calls, which were later used as evidence to support the new witness tampering charges. As a result, he was sent back to jail after violating the terms of his bond and was held without bail. On top of that, a judge revoked his phone privileges, leaving him completely cut off from the outside world. But despite everything, the past still wasn't going away. Even with Geneva requesting to drop the charges and X publicly trying to move forward, things took another turn when leaked jail calls surfaced. In these recordings, X could be heard making statements that fueled even more controversy about the case. Some saw it as a confession, while others believed it was taken out of context. Either way, the leaks only added more fuel to the fire, making it impossible for X to truly escape his past, even as his career was reaching new heights.
But she fell through on every occasion, until now, until I started her up, bro. But I started her up because she made one mistake, and then from there, the whole cycle went down. Now she's scared. That girl is scared for her life, which I understand.
Despite all the legal trouble piling up, XXXTentacion was still trying to move forward. But there was one major issue. He couldn't go anywhere. After being hit with 15 new felony charges related to witness tampering, X was placed on house arrest, forcing him to stay put while his case played out. But with his new album Question Mark dropping and his career reaching new heights, X and his legal team knew that they had to make a move. So his attorneys filed a request asking a Florida judge to remove his ankle monitor and allow him to tour. Their argument, X needed to make money, and without shows, he'd be in serious financial trouble. Like a lot of artists, X knew that streaming and album sales didn't bring in much, and touring was where the real money was made, and it worked. In early 2018, a judge granted his request, officially lifting his house arrest. His attorney, David Bogenschutz, called it a step forward and complete freedom, praising X for how he had conducted himself over the past few months. But there was still a catch. X had to submit monthly drug tests and report his travel. Now for the first time in months, X was free to move. His legal situation was still up in the air, but he was finally able to hit the road and capitalize on his success. Still, X kept pushing forward. He focused on music, charity efforts, and self-improvement, publicly speaking about wanting to change his life. But no matter what he did, the weight of his past loomed over him. On June 18, 2018, XXXTentacion was shot and killed outside Riva Motorsports in Florida. Since I already went over the details of his death earlier in the video, I won't really talk about it once again. But what happened here was a moment that shook the entire music world, but specifically hip-hop. Fans flooded social media with tributes, artists and celebrities reacted with shock, X's music surged up the charts, breaking streaming records as millions revisited his catalog. But beyond the public mourning, his passing left a complicated legacy. His court case with Geneva was still open, his past was still debated, and the conversation around him wasn't over. In fact, in so many ways, it was just getting started. At this point, X was gone. He never got the chance to face the consequences of his actions. But what made the situation even more complicated was that, in his final months, he was mentally preparing himself for whatever came next. On one hand, X was relieved when Geneva told him that she wouldn't testify, because he believed that meant the case would get dropped. But on another note, he actually didn't want her to suffer any consequences for her decision. If the case collapsed due to her refusal to testify, there was a chance that Geneva could face legal repercussions, and X knew this. But in the end, none of that mattered. With X gone, the legal battle that had followed him for years was officially over, since a criminal trial cannot continue against a deceased defendant. The court decided to drop all the charges, including the domestic violence case involving Geneva Ayala and the multiple witness tampering charges. But while the court decided to leave this behind, the public didn't. And despite everything that happened, Geneva was obviously not, celebrating his death. She had already been under intense scrutiny, and now fans were waiting for her reaction. When she finally spoke out, it wasn't what people expected. Everyone expected me to be relieved or happy. No, I'm broken. Geneva's words made it clear X's death didn't bring her closure, just more pain. And while the legal case was over, the debate over his past, his legacy, and what he truly represented was just beginning. So I think a lot of people know that in the months leading up to X's death, X was actually openly trying to change. He talked about self-improvement, positivity, and giving back. We briefly spoke about the Help in Hand Challenge, a movement he started in early 2018 where he visited foster homes, donated clothes, gaming consoles, and other essentials, and he encouraged his fans to do the same. He wanted to use his influence to inspire and spread positivity, a message he continued to push on his social media accounts. Now, one of the last things X was planning on doing, like literally right before he died, he announced this on his Instagram story. Some of y'all might remember this. It was a charity event in Florida. He put that Instagram story up and then he was killed 2 hours later. X's music also reflected this shift. While his early work was filled with pain, rage, and aggression, his later songs carried themes of growth, self-reflection, and even love. Tracks like Changes and Hope were a departure from the raw, unfiltered anger that once defined his sound. Despite these efforts, not everyone was convinced. Although a lot of people saw this shift as genuine personal self-growth, others believed it was just an attempt to repair his public image after the backlash he faced. And this is one of the biggest conversations when it comes to XXXTentacion. Yes, he was changing. Yes, he was talking about positivity and personal growth and giving back. But at the same time, his past was filled with horrific actions, things he could never fully erase. And he was running from it, trying to redeem himself. But the question remains, was X doing this out of genuine self-improvement, or was it just PR to rebuild his career and reputation? I think it's really undeniable to say that XXXTentacion was obviously not a good person at one point in his life. What he put Geneva through, the abuse, the trauma, the control, that was horrific. I mean, these are things that another woman said that this man did to her, right? Some people might doubt her story even till this day, just like those around him did at the time. But then again, this wasn't just an isolated allegation. X had a pattern of troubling behavior that couldn't be ignored. When someone has a history of similar behavior, it becomes harder to dismiss these claims against them. And like we all know, patterns speak louder than isolated incidents. And in X's case, there was no shortage of troubling stories surrounding his past. Now, on another note, their relationship was toxic from the start, and that toxicity only escalated into violence. Something that should never happen, no matter the circumstances, obviously. But when a relationship is built on instability and control and emotional highs and lows, it often becomes a cycle that's hard to break. I mean, it was obviously difficult for Geneva to, walk away from the situation, and even harder to break free from the cycle she was caught in. And for X, he was not only abusive, but also deeply controlling, creating an environment where leaving wasn't just difficult, it felt impossible for Geneva. And in their case, that cycle spiraled into something dangerous where love and destruction became intertwined. His age is also something that gets brought up, and in some ways, it's a fair discussion. He was a teenager when a lot of this happened, but whether you're 16, 17, 19, or 20, which is the age when he died, there's no excuse for putting your hands on a woman. You should never, ever do that. If you as a man ever have the urge to put your hands on a woman, take your emotions and walk away. Never let anger push you to cross that line, ever. However, we do have to acknowledge that X could have actually become something better. After all, he was on that path. Whether he would have stayed on that path is impossible to say. But despite the kind of person he once was, it's clear that he was putting in the effort to change. And personally, I think that counts for something. Usually when it comes to figures like X, the public has the ability to watch their entire journey unfold. If someone starts off doing horrible things, and we see them remain the same until the very end, we can fully hold them accountable for that. But with X, the full story never played out. I mean, just as he was about to change, he was killed, and I think that's the saddest part, not knowing what he could have become. Would X have fully redeemed himself? Would he have continued, that path of self-improvement? We'll never truly know. But what I do know is that I would have loved to see him get that chance, to develop his character, to, grow into a better man, to truly make things right. But that's life. X left behind a legacy that is both praised and condemned, celebrated by those who saw him as an artist who was evolving, and rejected by those who couldn't look past his actions. For some, he was a symbol of growth, pain, and redemption, a troubled young man who was trying to change before his life was cut short. For others, his mistakes overshadow everything else, serving as a reminder of the harm he caused. And that's what makes XXXTentacion's legacy so complicated. There's no real answer to how X should be remembered because, at the end of the day, it all depends on which part of his story resonates with you the most. So I'll ask you this question: was X truly changing, or should he solely be defined by his past? I appreciate you for making it till the very end. If you made it this far, drop a like on this video because obviously we put in a lot of work into this one, okay? If you're new here, my name is Blacky Speaks. Thank you so much for making it till the very end. Subscribe if you're new here. What do you guys think about this topic regarding XXXTentacion's past? I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say, so I'll see you in the comment section below. But most importantly of all, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. I'm out.